Well, good morning. We're here for our second featured Fellows Program Partner interview. This is Joost, one of the inspired co-hosts, community managers, and of course also one of the guys from Learn Deep, together with Pete Reynolds. And we have Michelle Young this morning, one of the fellows, joining us to listen to what Liz Taylor has to tell us about the MSOE STEM Center and possibly ask some questions later. So welcome, Liz. So glad you could make some time for us this morning. And we look forward to hearing all about the MSOE STEM Center, of which you are the Director of STEM Outreach, I think is your official title. Yeah, and you've also graciously agreed to be a partner in the Fellows Program, and we'd love to hear sort of what that means for you, what you think you can offer, what the fellows can talk to you about as they discover what they're going to be needing in the learning experiences that they'll be designing in a couple of months. So before we get started with sort of talking about the MSOE Center and what that has to offer, I wanted to give you an opportunity to first talk a little bit about sort of where you come from and what excites you about being the Director of STEM Outreach, and sort of, why you're doing this and what you're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, thanks. Well, my background is I'm an engineer by training. So I was a mechanical engineer for about 5-6 years before I came to MSOE. I did my undergraduate studies in Flint, Michigan. While I was there, I grew up in rural Wisconsin, so I'd never really seen any kind of disparities in outreach or education or access till I went to Flint. And when I was there, I started a Girl Scout STEM Day with the university. And I was like, yeah, I really like doing this. This is something I'll do on the side while I achieve my engineering aspirations. And fast forward to Milwaukee in about 2016, a job posting opened up at MSOE for a director role with Project Lead the Way at the time. And I thought I'd just throw my hat in the ring, see what skills maybe I would need to get into that role in the future. And thankfully, probably could guess, it worked out. Left engineering to help start up our STEM outreach department and moved into the director role in 2019. The 2020 gap gets me.
Right. Yeah, it gets all of us.
Yeah. And since I've been here, we've really focused on growing a true pipeline of STEM programs. So I'm really passionate about making sure kids get exposure in elementary and middle school versus a lot of college programs that focus on the high school students. I didn't think I could be an engineer and hated math. And so I think I wanted to be a marine biologist, a physical therapist, a lawyer, like all these different things, until I had a really good high school physics teacher. And that experience changed things for me, as well as a Girl Scout day that I had as I think an 8th or 9th grader. So I think outreach is really impactful. I think those one-day experiences can make a big difference for students. And I love that I get to do that as my full-time job and work with groups like Learn Deep and all the fellows in their schools.
Perfect. Very exciting. So you found something that is really not only your job, but also something that's your passion. That's great. And it sounds like it's it's also not a traditional type of role. It's a new sort of area that creates opportunities for you to be, exploring what you can do and pull things together that other people may not have thought about as important or essential to providing those opportunities for girls and boys to learn more about what engineering is and what part of that could be their future.
Yeah, when I started here, I didn't have a job description actually.
Right,
So
I can imagine.
MSOE's been really good about letting us explore and meet with people and figure out what the community needs versus kind of dictating what we should do from day one, which I think has been really exciting.
So tell us a little bit about, let's talk just about the STEM Center as a whole. Talk a little bit about sort of what you created, what what it looks like today, and maybe a little bit looking ahead in the future of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, so the STEM Center opened in September of 2020, so in
Mhm.
the middle of the pandemic, which actually was a good thing. So our previous STEM model at MSOE around 2017 is when our department launched, was we had a storage closet in the basement of the campus center. We would kind of wheel in between classes, set up an experience, tear it down, and kind of hustle back to our office before the next class would come in. Which really limited our ability to be super flexible with educators that wanted to bring their students in. As Michelle knows, when we would teach summer programs, we typically would take over an academic building and try and find a floor of a building that wasn't being used for classes, which was great. It taught us how to be really agile and nimble, but we really needed a center. So we started working on a project to get a dedicated space alongside some funders um, in 2018, 2019, thereabouts.
Mhm.
And thankfully, we secured the funding in early 2020 and began
Mhm.
construction in June of 2020. And we're really thankful that all the partners, We Energies, Rockwell Automation, American Family, Milwaukee Tool, and Scott and Linda Hag all decided, like, yes, this is really important. We're going to keep the funding so we can open this in September.
Right.
So the facility is located on the corner of Broadway and Water Street underneath Bates Field. It's a 10,000 square foot, used to be just a cement box that was designed to
Mhm.
be for restaurants, stores, and things to serve the campus community. And it
Okay.
hadn't found a home with anybody in the last, I think, 7 years that it was here.
Right.
So we went on the long journey of rezoning it. It's now a part of the
Mhm.
university proper, and the entire 10,000 square feet was converted into what the STEM Center is today. So we have two large classrooms, a lab classroom, which is our cement floor, butcher block table, kind of designed for more dirty type experiments.
Mhm.
Um, a tech classroom, which is larger, carpeted, more of your traditional space, and then 3,000 to 4,000 feet for first robotics. So it can fit a
Cool.
full FRC field, a tool room that hopefully will be online soon so kids can work with drill presses, lathes, mills, all that good stuff,
Mhm.
and learn
Mhm.
some more technical tooling skills. And then some other peripheral things like a kitchen so we can provide food to students who are here for weekend and evening programs. So this year we have been able to run programs, which has been great.
Mhm.
It's given us an opportunity to work out the kinks with the center and really
Right.
understand maybe what we overlooked in the design. It was purposely designed to be an open space so students could always see what was going on in other parts of the center, not in a
Mhm.
distracting way, but ideally, if I'm in a coding class one evening and a robotics team is working on the other side of the center, we want them to see what other opportunities they may or may not know about,
Mhm.
which has happened even with the pandemic. Our college team was working out of here, and a lot of our coding club students kind of wandered over and like, hey, tell us about your
Mhm.
robot and what you're building. And our students love it too. I think MSOE students really love sharing what they're tinkering with.
Right.
So moving forward, this year's been a lot of piloting. We've had some groups use the space, um, especially schools and other groups who couldn't get into their buildings. We were able to
Mhm.
open our doors and let students work out of here for the year. Moving forward, we're hoping to resume our normal programming.
Mhm.
We're
Right.
able to make some upgrades and changes now that we have dedicated space. So you'll see our coding clubs come back, some of our evening and weekend programs come back. But the biggest change that's probably most of interest to the fellows group is that we're able to open our doors a little more widely to teachers who want to use the facility to support STEM in their classrooms. So whether
Okay.
that's the 3D printers, the tool room when it comes online, and I know we'll talk about that in a minute.
Mhm.
But it's just giving us the opportunity to be an even greater community resource than we have been.
Mhm. Cool. Um, so yeah, I think talking about the programming, um, there's the aspect of who you're doing the programming for, who you're opening your doors for, and then you mentioned the access to for teachers.
Mhm.
Presumably, if they don't have a fancy fab lab in their own school, they could, escape to the STEM center and book that space to make use of that at the appropriate time in their students' projects. Um, Talk about, what that looks like, a little bit more detail, especially in terms of giving the teachers some ideas of, what's supplemental in the STEM Center that I could make use of. Let's start talking, and maybe there are some questions that I can, we can go into a little bit more detail as I hear things that you're mentioning.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk in two groupings based on your Michelle's. And cool. You're good. I'm going to break it up into two groups. I'm going to talk about our programs, and then I'm going to talk about the resources, because they do look a little different based on the user. I'm going to drift off to my other screen real quick to make sure I don't miss a program, because we offer 27 to 30 different programs in a normal year. So from a programs perspective, I like to think of it as buckets. So there's a bucket that I won't get into for the context of this conversation, which are programs that a parent or guardian typically signs their their child up for. So those are our evening coding clubs, where a teacher probably won't sign their entire classroom up, a parent or guardian to really responsible for that. That's one bucket. Another bucket is school focused programs. So these are structured programs that have their own curriculum or competition format, and teachers can sign up some or all of their students to participate. So examples of that is at the middle school level, we have our NFPA, which is the National Fluid Power Association Fluid Power Challenge. So that's two days here on campus, one in October, one in November, where middle school teachers can bring their students, they learn about fluid power, they get to build a device that day, they get a competition theme, and then they come back a month later and compete here on campus. So that program's been running for 20 plus years, I want to say.
Really?
A long-standing program, and I can share information about that on Inspired. At the high school level, we have two, what I would call competitions. They're not as outreach heavy. So there's the Wisconsin Regional Science Bowl. We're the only site in the state of Wisconsin where students who want to try and compete on the national stage can attend to qualify. And that happens in January every year. If a teacher's interested, typically teams start training as soon as they can. A lot of teams start right after January wraps up, and I can share that information as well. And then we also offer for high school students an opportunity conference series. Those are run by academic departments here on campus. We have a math day, a science day, and a computer science day, and we're adding a new business day here this year. And the overall gist is students come to campus and compete in one of those topics with problem sets developed by faculty and staff. It's a good way to get a feel for what it's like to be at MSOE. And usually faculty can kind of share some of their insights, have lunch. It's a fun, competitive day.
Right.
And then the last bucket of programming that teachers are probably interested in is, two buckets. I guess I have four. The second to last one is STEM on. That's by far our most popular program. It's the best way for teachers to engage their classroom on a full classroom level at any level. Truly, when we say K through 12 with STEM on site, we've done kindergartners, we've done seniors in high school. That's a 1 to 2 hour hands-on activity that can be run here on campus, now at the STEM Center, or at a school, because I know a lot of schools getting a bus to come for a quick field trip can be a barrier. So we'll bring the activity to your school. For any school that is above 50% economically disadvantaged on their DPI scorecard, that program can be run free of charge. Otherwise, it's like $5 per student for the instruction and all that. And shortly, we'll be launching a catalog, I'm hoping within a week, that now is standards aligned. So teachers can look at the activities and figure out where it might fit in their curriculum. They're all hands-on, really unique. They range from artificial intelligence all the way to catapult building and heart valve design. So there's a lot of unique opportunities there.
On that, can I just ask on that? Do schools need specific facilities for that, or can that take place in the classroom? What do teachers need to worry about in that sense?
We've done classrooms, we've done gymnasiums for groups that want to do like all their fifth graders in one fell swoop. And we will adjust the activity and recommend activities based on what's in the classroom. So for example, some of our coding programs require a device. We have a small fleet of laptops that we were able to travel with in the past. After 5 years, they're on their last legs, but I know it's the last year, there might be more devices. But when we come to schools, we can bring unplugged activities. So we have artificial intelligence activities that require no technology whatsoever. And we can teach neural networks and generative adversarial networks for GANs without even having to turn on a laptop. So typically the only need is a space that we can kind of take over for the 1 to 2 hours for the teacher.
Right. Good. Okay. And so you, Michelle posted a question in the chat so just to confirm, MSOE will be able to come into the school. You don't have to take your class into the STEM center.
Correct.
If you can't organize transportation and those types of things.
Yeah, we have both options. A lot, to be honest, in the past, most of our activities have taken place at schools just because we were less flexible on campus because of the aforementioned basement warehouse feel. For teachers that do want to come to the STEM Center and funding for a bus is an issue, like getting a bus isn't the issue, it's the field trip fee, they should reach out to me because I think we're going to have funding come online in the next year that allows us to pay for busing so schools can come here. We just need help with the organizing the bus that I have tried and failed to do when it comes to.
That's more naturally on the teacher side. They have to do that in other situations too, so they should be more familiar with that. So there are really options for teachers to either invite you into their school or take their class into the STEM Center and do the activity there. That's great.
There's one.
I interrupted you when you were going to talk about the last one, so please feel free.
Yeah, well, the last one is the one I simultaneously forget about, but also is one of the more helpful ones. We have a partnership with the Argosy Foundation for a program called First Ambassadors, and all the opportunities I talked about for competitions and such. I know we're pretty heavy middle and high school. STEM on site is all grade levels, but First Ambassadors is, I want to say 5th through 12th grade. It's First Lego League, First Tech Challenge, and FRC for schools who have a team or want to start a team. We have MSOE students who are hired to be technical ambassadors to come to Central City classrooms. And what we require is that there's a teacher, a staff member, someone who's employed by the school who has a desire to run the team. And we will come and help. How do you register? How do you get funding? A little known fact is most first teams can be free at the FTC and FLL level if you know where to apply for the scholarships, and we can help with that piece.
Okay.
So that's a great
program. Can you I'm sorry, about helping with the scholarships, can you provide some information or some contact information for teachers that are interested in exploring that? Together with the rest that you said you might.
I'm dropping my colleague Mike's email in the chat.
Perfect.
I will just give him a heads up. People might be emailing. So just reference the First Ambassadors program. Andrew Douglas would be 1000% eligible, Michelle. The other group that I'll drop in Inspired, because it's not our program, is there's a new group called Milwaukee Robotics Academy that we partner with. And they're located behind the Messmer campus. They have their own facility. And that's a community FRC team. So FRC teams are bigger. They're 20 to 40 kids. Some get insanely huge. So if you're at a school where you have 1 or 2 kids who are really excited about robotics, but you don't have enough to make a team, the MRA is a really good resource. And I'll link that on Inspired. I'm gonna make a quick note of all the things I've promised.
Right.
Bring it drop on Inspired.
So yes, Inspired is really the place where you need to look for these types of resources. And we have set up a topic in the Fellows program specifically for all the articles and posts that talk about resources that you might find useful as a fellow, but in general as a teacher.
And I know Michelle asked about study partnerships. So we're a little unique in that we don't have a formal partners program. Our doors are truly open to any school, any group. We've had homeschool students, charter schools, public, private, enthusiastic Civil Air Patrol groups that come in. So what a partnership typically looks like for us is just that constant communication of needs. So if you know you need something, just shoot me an email. That's really the best way. Worst thing I can do is say no, which I don't like to do. So more often than not, I'll find a way to make it happen. But an example is some of the first teams at Golden My Air, for example, we've just worked with them for so long. Tina, who's there, just knows who to reach out to, how to book the space. So I think a partnership here looks more like, do you communicate with us when you need something? And do we because eventually we'll figure out what you might want and what you might need. Like I have some schools that we've worked with for a long time that I know their ninth graders are always looking for summer scholarships, and I just know to kind of automatically send them information.
So if so in that sense, if people are just maybe not so familiar with the STEM Center and they want to find out, can I bring a class over here? Who should they reach out to? Is that you? Do you have somebody that is sort of the focal point for that kind of inquiry?
Yeah, so the best place to start is our STEM on-site program, because 99% of the requests that we get are in line with what that program's designed to do. And that program's pretty flexible. So we have some schools that are like, I want to bring all my fifth graders in for a full day and it's 70 kids. We can set up a day where they like rotate between activities or things like that. So I will drop the STEM on-site link in Inspired as well. Otherwise, anyone can reach out to me at any time. My colleague Sarah runs STEM on-site. And then we do get requests for other groups for Michelle's questions. So like interacting with student groups, interacting with faculty and staff. We don't have a great system for that, like no university does. So feel free to email me. More often than not, if it's not someone I work with directly, you may get past a few emails till we find the right person. But I know a lot of our student groups, like our Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, our National Society of Black Engineers, Society of Women Engineers, they do a lot of outreach, and a lot of our students are always looking for opportunities. We just unfortunately don't have like a slick online system where you can request. So shoot me. What's helpful to me is a specific request that I can send to students. And I know we're going to talk about the near peer mentoring program in a bit, which also might be a good catch-all for some of the requests people in the fellows program have.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, let's talk about those. You started talking about the near peer mentors. In terms of sort of initiatives that are not quite, a program, a STEM or a robotics program or anything like that. What sort of things are you doing to maybe connect the university to the middle schools in a more of a relational way, to show younger kids, what they could be doing later if they're interested in STEM? What sort of initiatives are you thinking of there?
Yeah, so the one that's probably the most exciting that's coming online, fingers crossed in fall, is a program that hasn't been formally announced. I can share it with the fellows, but know like if you Google it online, you will get absolutely no hits or any additional information at this time. But Jimmy Banks, who was a soccer coach here at MSOE, he was also on the US national team. I think he hailed from the north side. I want to say he's an MPS graduate. I can't remember what high school he went to. But he passed away a few years ago, and the athletics department really wanted to honor his memory. And so they have committed to having all of their student athletes be near peer mentors in specifically Milwaukee public schools, but other schools in Milwaukee are on the list too. I know we have Glen Hills in this program, and they're already excited about that. So that's 200 to 300 students that we'll be looking to put into classrooms to help support anything you might need, whether it's just getting another set of eyes, whether it's building relationships with college students in your classroom, because the students are like all majors. Our student athletes might be nursing or business or actuarial science majors. Statistically, they're probably going to be an engineering student of some kind. And so we're kind of figuring out what that program looks like in the finer points. The 2 immersions that we have planned for this year is one with the fellows program, making some matches so that teachers have access to mentors throughout the year. And then we'll also working with the central office at MPS, their CPE team. They've identified a few schools that they want to make matches to pilot really specific needs over the year. So what does it look like when the teacher and the students are connecting on a very specific curricular initiative? And CT is managing what the nuts and bolts of that look like. I make sure they have the students. But for the fellows program, basically that'll look like, let's set up a weekly time, a bi-weekly time, something that's on the student's schedule. And you'll actually end up being assigned probably 3 to 6 mentors, because when a student athlete's not in season, that's when they would be in the classroom. And then when they're in season, they'd be out. So there'll be a number of people actually assigned to each site to make sure there's always someone there. And I did want to answer Michelle's question.
We can take it now, or we can have. So Michelle, the format of the program that we're using is doing the interview, and obviously questions in the chat, but then give the attendees, especially the fellows, time at the end, the last 20 minutes or however it falls out, to ask questions directly as well. So just so that you know that there's an opportunity to ask questions directly from Liz. And that's for the other fellows that may be watching this later afterwards. This is one of the things that you're missing out on if you're not attending these interviews. You won't have an opportunity to ask questions right here from Liz or whoever the fellow is next to, or the featured partner representative is next time. But if you want to, feel free to answer Michelle's question, or at least try to address it. I think it's probably a little bit broader answer than just yes or no. So feel free to.
It's good timing because we're talking about programs, and that's really what the question addresses. So first off, as a former engineering student, MSOE looks like my engineering school. So I personally believe that having carved out opportunities that are very specifically targeted towards different students are important, because a coding club's great, but I know from our experience, not a lot of girls will come to our general coding clubs, but we do have girls who code clubs. We've been running those since 2017, 2018. So for example, this past year, we did a intro to coding and intro to Python. And then the next semester, they basically leveled up to a intermediate coding, intermediate Python. So we've always had kind of girl-specific coding programs. We have a program called FLAME, which is Female Leaders Advocating for Mechanical Engineering, a long acronym from our ME program, which I'll share when those details are posted this year. I think it's September 25th. And that's a high school event for girls, just to spend the day with female mechanical engineering students, get to see our labs, meet with female engineers, do a challenge together. So we have a handful of female-specific programs. I know our SWE group does some of theirs as well. Excuse me. And then for students of color, we've been a longtime partner with Beyond STEM. So when they got their start and their roots, they were a NSBE-specific initiative. I know it's grown into its own nonprofit now. We've also partnered with very specific groups, because like the MPS Foundation, when we focused on Girls STEM Academy in summer of 2019, that fingers crossed we'll be back next summer. Pandemic, as with everything, has kind of thrown a wrench in those programs. But that was a residential 1-week program for female students, 6th grade going into 7th, at Metcalf, Franklin, Carver Academy, and then Mitchell on the south side. And MPS Foundation specifically picked schools where students of color weren't likely to get opportunities like this, where they're maybe being overlooked for university partnerships or other things. And those girls lived on our campus for a week. They attended a class every morning in a different STEM subject, and then they went to the Milwaukee Bucks for GE Healthcare to see that subject in action. So I'm making sure I didn't miss any others. We have a long list, but a lot of Girls Plus AI is another program that we run. So anyways, there's a long list. And I also know our student groups, those affinity groups especially, have been doing specific outreach as well, that we're hoping at some point to get a better tracking system, because right now I'll hear like a week after that our NSBE group did something with a local school, or they did something for Black History Month with curriculum. And I don't know about it till afterwards, so I can't share. So we're working on information sharing systems at the school. Trying to think if there's any other big ones I missed. I'm sure it'll come to mind later, but we're always striving to be better, though, to be frank. I think there's a huge need, and every year we try to add something more that's addressing those needs.
Just maybe going a little bit off the sort of the topics of fellows program, but what is the university doing to attract more students, minority students, because then they become available as near peer mentors, hopefully if the program kicks off, for the students in lower grades to benefit from the role modeling that they can provide.
Yeah, there's been a lot of exciting things in the last few years. So I think the biggest university change was they created a new role, Vice President of Student Inclusion and Engagement, I think was her title. It's Chandra Mitchell. who I think is either a Riverside or a Rufus King graduate. She's like
Mm-hmm.
from Milwaukee, ran admissions from a long time. But
Mm-hmm.
her whole task is addressing that question. How do we get our campus to look more like the city we live in? Because if you walk on our campus, we do not look like the city.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone here would dispute that. If they do, we can chat. So that's been the biggest change. There's been new programs at the collegiate level, new supports to make sure all students have the resources they need. So if they are at MSOE, they'll stay at MSOE, they get supported. I know there's mentoring programs, student services and other things at the college level, and Chandra and her team would be the best people to speak to those for any teachers that want specifics. And I'm happy to make that introduction. Other things I know that have been happening behind the scenes that I don't have a lot of insight to are scholarship practices. How do we make sure, because giving a student, as someone who had to pay for college, a $2,000 scholarship is great, but it does nothing for me if I'm paying for my own education.
Right.
So making sure scholarships really help bridge the gap. And I know they're partnering with, I think it's All in Milwaukee is the group, or Milwaukee.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Yeah.
To help provide that bridge funding. So students, underrepresented students who want to come to MSOE, they're getting that final dollar to make sure they're covered. And that partnership either goes live this year or went live last year. And then I think from our department specifically, making sure that we're creating programs that truly are accessible. So one of my big missions has been, I think this is our first year, we're 100% there, is that every single program has scholarships available. No matter what the program is, if it's a 1-hour program, a 2-week program, there's a scholarship opportunity available. We piloted with our coding clubs a no questions asked scholarship model, where if you need one, we send you a code, you apply. I don't need to know if you qualify for free or reduced lunch. I don't need to know what school you go to qualify. If you need it, you're in, because it's pretty rare that people ask for scholarships that don't need it, is what we've learned over the few years. The other has just been access in general. So bringing STEM on site's been one of our big initiatives, to go to the schools and go to community centers and getting rid of that transportation barrier. I'm hoping next year this transportation fund will help as well to make sure that barrier isn't two ways, like people can get here and experience the campus. And then lastly, really trying to have our college students engaged in programs as much as possible. I'm not super cool. Kids don't like hanging out with me for hours on end.
Well, I mean, you do some cool things I've found out in the meantime. I mean, you know, rock climbing and all of those things. That makes you pretty cool in my book.
Yeah, maybe among adults.
Right.
But like our coding clubs are all taught by MSOE students, and I've heard a lot of positive feedback, especially like our students are really candid. I haven't met any student who's like, yeah, engineering's a breeze, it's not a struggle. We have students who are like me, who just struggle with math, really good at relaying the experience with a truth versus through any admissions, we want you to come here. So we're not going to tell you that I was up till 2 a.m. working on my final exam and it sucked, but I have this amazing opportunity, or I've met these people, I've gotten to do these things. So again, that near peer mentoring piece is something we're continuing to build. Obviously, the biggest barrier I think we're going to have is because our campus isn't a reflection of the city. The students I send into classrooms may not look like the students they're serving, which I'm hoping as the university continues to meet its goals and making our campus more reflective of the community, as a byproduct, that near peer mentorship will be more reflective of the schools they're going into.
Cool. That's. I mean, you're doing amazing work over there, and it's only going to continue to grow and build, and give the kids that need it the opportunity to explore, which is one of the cool things that I think you're doing. Let's round out the interview, the formal interview portion. I want to give some time to ask more questions. I know Pete probably has some questions too. Tell us what made you say yes when we asked, we being Learn Deep and the Fellows Program, when we asked, would you want to support this? Can you support the Fellows as a partner with Learn Deep in providing this Fellows opportunity? Was it easy? Was it difficult? What caused you to say, hey, I like this. This is in line with where my thinking is, or What was it?
Yeah. The short answer is when you guys ask me for something, I like to just say yes, because I like working with you all. But the longer answer is that one, I think the fellows program is really emulates a lot of the work we're trying to do, which are these really meaningful hands-on experiences and getting students that access. And I think the best way to do that is to support teachers, because we're a staff of 50. We can run programs all day, every day. We're never going to have the same impact as teachers that are in the classrooms. So anything we can do to lift up and support that work, I think is really important. The other thing too is the STEM Center is this amazing resource that I want as many people as possible to feel like it's theirs to use. One thing I don't think I mentioned is right now the center is free. So if you want to bring your classroom here, there's obviously the cost to get your kids here. But if you're like, we need access to your 5 3D printers, we don't have 3D printers at your school, shoot me an email. If you need the classroom for the day to go with it, if we're open, it's yours. So really, we've been trying to support teachers more and more as I've been here. And again, with how small our staff is, I think the professional development opportunities haven't been able to develop as fast as programming. So I see this as our opportunity to work with teachers in a way we haven't been able to in the past. And I think one of the special things with our team is we're so flexible. We don't have like these very like concrete, here's what we have to do, here's the only option. So I think there's value to if a teacher sees some on-site program, you're like, hey, I see you're doing AI. Could we do AI and then maybe talk to an AI student while we're there? And can I do my own activity? We can really flex to what teachers need.
Very good, very good. Let's open the floor or whatever we want to call this on Zoom and give Pete and Michelle an opportunity to ask their questions that they've been holding. And let's just consider this as an opportunity to have a bit of a freer flowing conversation if that comes out of the questions. So, you know, I'm stepping back and I'm just letting people talk as questions come up, and Liz, you have answers, or maybe Michelle and Pete have answers for each other. So feel free. Michelle, do you have a question right off the bat? I want to give you the first choice, and then Pete as well.
Oh, Michelle, I can't hear you.
There's something with your audio, Michelle. We couldn't hear you.
I can hear your frustration, even though I can't hear sound.
I see your frustration.
This was me yesterday.
Right. No, not yet. No. Should we give Pete the opportunity to ask a question first, and you figure out?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes,
okay,
now
you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
we, during remote learning, I got all kinds of upgrades, too many. Liz, I want to say thank you. I remember a couple of years ago, and it just resonated with me. You stated that you wanted to diversify your program and work with not only certain schools, but you want to bring in some of the other schools that may not be exposed. And I do see that vision coming to life. So I just want to thank you for that. The questions, Joss, that I had really pertain to diversity. I was MSOE stimulating diversity, and you've answered that. I do have a passion for being of the female species. We need to expose females to this side that's dominated by males. So you've answered my questions. I think I'm excited because it sounds like there is no partnership, but at any time I can call on you and say, hey, do you have some individuals who'll be happy to come in during any phase of the learning process just to give insight, to give feedback? That's what I heard. I think that's what I'm most interested in. So I have no other questions. If some come to mind, I will definitely. One quickly. You mentioned Mike and Lego League.
Yes.
He will bring other individuals, or is he the individuals? Then I wonder if there would be conflict of interest, because I know that he has that partnership with Golda.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So the First Ambassadors program, Mike coordinates it, and he may come to the school if an ambassador can't make it. But in our last full year, that before the pandemic kind of closed down our teams, we had 27 ambassadors, I think. So you'll get 2 to 3 students. Really what happens is Mike would connect with you on the front end to make sure, like, we've had some schools reach out and they don't have a teacher or coach available, and our students can't be the teacher or coach. Like, they're there to support. They might look like that for a startup phase, but the goal with the program is that initially you get rolled off the ambassador program, like you have a self-sustaining robotics team. And some schools that takes 2 years. Some schools, I think we're on year 5 or 6 with helping them figure things out. It all depends on the school. So when you reach out to Mike, he will probably you'll work with him initially, and then he would pair some ambassadors to come to Douglas to help you.
Yeah, so I just see with the fellows program, there being a need, because we're going to be working with so many different teachers under so many different content areas. So I see a need with not experts, but students who are in specific fields being able to come in at any given point. So that's where I see where we would utilize you the best. Okay, Pete, mute my mic now.
Yeah, so Liz, one of the things that we talked about when you first sort of mentioned the Jimmy Banks and near peer mentors is, given that a lot of the MSOE students won't look like the students they're working with, what kind of opportunities can we prep them with ahead of time to help them understand how they can work effectively with the students in the schools represented in the fellows program? And you had talked a little bit about some of the training you might do, and we had also kicked around, and maybe this is a chance to get some input from Michelle, is how might we bring the near peer mentors together with the fellows teachers to sort of get to know each other and help allow the teachers to help the near peer mentors understand how they can work effectively with their students?
Yeah, I think the 2 pieces we've talked about, I know some of them kind of came out of conversations with you and Yost, was one, making sure that the fellows our Jimmy Banks scholars, near peer mentors, meet with the teacher that they're going to be with, because every classroom's different. The teachers know the needs of their students, what the learning spectrum might be. Working with, maybe you have a classroom with a heavy amount of IEPs, and you know that you need students who are patient and are able to work through certain things. That will be really helpful, because the teacher could say, like, this student's not going to work in my classroom. Like, they don't have XYZ with this 200 to 300 student pool that I've been promised. Chances are there's someone else who will. The other thing that we're discussing, and I need to do some legwork to verify that this will happen this year, is because a lot of our students aren't reflective, again, of the classrooms they'll be in, is making sure we partner Mentor Milwaukee's, who I'd like to reach out to make sure they get some training to just understand, like, our Girls STEM Academy actually is a really good example. A lot of our counselors were white females, and the girls, like, one night were yelling, and they're like, oh my God, there's this massive fight breaking out. The girls were just like, they were totally fine. They were just having a conversation. It's just the way they speak. And that was an eye-opener to us. We're like, okay, we just need you to understand, like, different neighborhoods, different schools, like, it's going to look different. They're going to communicate differently, and it's not wrong. It's different. And you just need to know how you can communicate with those students, knowing also just backgrounds of the things students might be coming to the classroom with. I think we've talked about trauma-informed learning, social emotional informed learning, and we can only do so much for the MSOE students to prepare them for that. I think they'll learn a lot being in the classroom, but just letting them know that the schools that they came from may look different than the schools they're going to. It might look the same. With 200 to 300 students, they're all going to have different backgrounds and things they bring. So I guess the ask that I have of the fellows program is, as we launch this near peer mentors program, I'm going to need feedback with where we can do better to prepare students to come into the classroom. First ambassadors, we've done a little bit of that, where we assign new ambassadors with experienced ambassadors who have been at schools for a while, know the kids, know the teachers. We're not going to have that with this program. So I think that's the big need.
Yeah, and I think this is, one of those areas where we're all going to be learning how to make this work more effectively and better. And so I think it's like sort of a key area to get some feedback from the fellows teachers on what do they want to see happen, what's going to make it work for them, what's going to be best for their kids in this. And so, we wanted to defer to that expertise that's already in the classroom to help us figure out how do we do that best.
I also think a lot of our students forget what it's like to be a middle schooler. I mean, all age groups, but I think they forget what it's like to go through puberty, what all these like emotions are, what it's like, especially for young girls, to have like this insane self-confidence battle as a 6th grader or a 7th grader, and bullying and all these other things that go on that you kind of lose sight of as you get older and get into more mature learning environments. Those are the other things too that are just nice to remind kids, like, here's what you went through as a middle schooler, relive the glory days of 8th grade.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing that'll be nice for the fellows is you've graciously offered to host our STEM studio, the design sessions in July, last week of July, first week of August down at the STEM Center. So the fellows will get a good chance to see what's down there, what the space is like, what's possible to do there. So we're excited about being able to be down there for that.
Yeah, excited to have you guys.
Yeah, that's going to be a good time and a good space to bring everybody together in and do some interesting work. Michelle, any other thoughts? I noticed you sent something in the chat. Acknowledgement is important.
Yeah. What I've noticed with my student teachers who come into the classroom, students of color are more accepting of them if they feel that that individual has acknowledged who they are and what they bring to the table, and are open with them. I know they get excited when there is a minority mentor who comes in. But with anyone, it's just that the basics, acknowledge the person who's there. Don't pretend, none of the pretending. They tend to do well with that.
Well, that'll be an interesting, aspect of, in a more general way, maybe an interesting aspect of the design process that we're going through as fellows in July and August, is to build in, how do you acknowledge and give students the space and a voice to indicate to you what they're interested in exploring as within the topic of water, and then the project idea. What are you interested in exploring, and how much space is there for you to do that? How do we design those opportunities into the learning experience?
Yeah, and I think one note I want to make too, because I feel like we're doing a lot of good work to try and make equitable experiences for students, but I also know we have a long way to go and there's a lot more we could do. So as the fellows go through the program, I'm bad at taking feedback, but I do want it. I want to know what we could be doing better. We're trying to do more every year, but I know there's a lot more we could do as well. So any feedback at any time is truly welcome, regardless of what my face might look like when I get it.
Yep. Well, and that goes for the fellows program as a program as well. And of course, for Pete and I as sort of the instigators of what this might be down the road, we want to get all the feedback that we can handle to make sure that the fellows program grows and matures and appeals to a lot more teachers to want to, share the experience and learn together with their peers how to design better and more equitable and whatever other labels are appropriate to give that learning experiences for the kids that they're working with.
One idea came to mind, and I saw this when I did a summer program at a different university with some college students, and it was communication. They're specialized in their areas and so technical, but they just forget. They just forget the communication aspect of it, and breaking things down and just communicating with others. And so I brought that up as an issue because I was a middle school teacher.
Yeah.
And the facilitators end up doing a communication type of, it was like a 2 hour, 1 hour communication type of lesson with the students, which really helped them to see that they needed to break things down, that they have to respond in a certain way. And it was interesting, but it was effective because I don't know why the college students just didn't connect. You got to bring it down a little bit. But that was effective.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's a good point, Michelle. I think, especially when you're so heads down into whichever engineering discipline or whichever it may be, you start talking that language, you talk it all the time. You need to use the language to learn and read and apply. But then as you get into whatever work environment, you need to be able to communicate with other employees, your coworkers that do not have that engineering background. So it's a great exercise to go through, a great practice to be a near-peer mentor and have to explain to whether it's a middle school kid or a high school kid or even the teacher, what does this mean in plain language? Because I need to understand that you don't have the same level of, that verbiage and the concepts that I'm used to thinking in. So great opportunity for the near-peer mentors to learn how to really talk at a different level so that other people that are not engineers can understand what they need to understand of it, so that we can collaborate again, right? It's not about I'm teaching you and then you go away. No, it's because we need to work on something together and we need to understand, what we have to do and what we have to bring to the table.
I take frequent notes when I have a bunch of wheels just turned in my head.
Sure, yeah. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. Any final thoughts? Maybe Liz or any, Peter and Michelle, before we wrap this up.
No, we're just excited to have the STEM Center be part of this thing. I think it's going to add a whole lot to the program, and we're excited to see where this goes.
And I know if anyone's watching, they may not have made it this far, but if they did make it to the end, the one takeaway that I hope everyone has is that we're here for you. Please shoot me an email if you think we can help. I'm really bad at saying no. I'm getting a little better. I will try to be candid and say no when there's something we can't do. But my entire team really enjoys making yes happen as much as we can. So please do reach out, even if you're not sure it's something we do. I might also be able to direct you to someone who I know can.
Michelle, any final thoughts?
No, thank you. And we look forward to working with you, Miss Liz.
Yeah, you too. See you soon.
All right, because Michelle is giving a course together with a few other teachers at the MSOE STEM Center in a few weeks. Michelle, you want to put in a quick plug for it?
I sure will. It's a summer program for middle school students. We're excited because we're going to be in one location. The project that I'm going to facilitate has something to do with homelessness. So we're going to make it project-based, where it's completely hands-on. So it won't necessarily be like in the classroom. Okay, we're going to make it more hands-on because it is summer vacation, but it's a great opportunity for middle schoolers to begin working on not only science, math, process skills, but also the design process. So I'm looking forward to doing that with Liz. And Youst and Pete are going to be talking to me after this meeting so that I can share my idea, so they can give me some feedback.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect.
I'm utilizing my resources.
Excellent.
There you go. A+. All right. Well, I truly enjoyed the conversation and hearing about all the resources, all the programs and initiatives that you have going on at the STEM Center that are available to kids, whether it's through their parents or through schools, and certainly the opportunities for teachers to find resources and maybe even take their kids over to the STEM Center. That's a unique opportunity, and it sounds like there's flexibility in your team to work with the teachers however they need to set it up. within reason, but there's a flexibility to work with the teachers to make things happen. So great to hear that, and great to have you doing this interview this morning. And great to have you and the MSOE STEM Center as a partner in the Fellows Program. Thank you very much for doing this, Liz, and we look forward to working with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we've recorded this this interview, and it'll be available in a few days for you to look back. It's going to be in the Fellows space, so not in the general community, but it'll be posted there, and you can look back at your leisure whenever you have time. And I'm sure that Liz is also part of the Fellows space as a Inspired member. So if there are questions that come out of this that you would like to directly ask her, you can do that through Inspired, or you can of course reach out to her by email if it requires a I'll be blowing up Inspired with links, is what Liz says just now. However you want to reach out to her, do it in Inspired or do it through email. She'll be there for you to answer you and help you with whatever you want to do. Okay. So thanks everyone, and look forward to seeing you next time in the next interview. Bye-bye.